I would like to address a few things. First of all, initially, we were going to have a talk offering after class tomorrow, but I think tomorrow may not be the best time, so we will postpone it to day after tomorrow, because tomorrow we will have the after class presentation, and if everybody's here, then it's probably not going to be very convenient. For that reason, we're going to postpone it. The post-class presentation is really important because we had started all the way from the beginning of this year and had never interrupted. And I would like to have the post-class presentation thoroughly completed this time for this class. If too many people were to be here, then it would be very difficult to conduct the post-class presentation. So day after tomorrow, we're going to have the talk offering and rededication of merit altogether. So tomorrow is going to be exactly the same as before, other than those of you who are in the post-class presentation group can be present at the Shrine Hall. The rest of you can stay at home and receive the teachings from the radio. And then the second, in terms of the requirement about the talk offering, we will make it clear tomorrow evening. The second thing is that after the teaching of the baskets display, I would like to encourage everyone to be engaged in a virtuous activity, which is a bit different than what I used to do. What I would like to do is to have a statue of the 1,000 eyes, 1,000 hands of Avalokiteshvara. Well, I think it may be better for each of you to contribute a little bit to the statue. It is not that I'm begging for alms because I don't have money, but if I were to look for someone to build this statue, and I'm sure it would be done without asking for anything at all. But I consider that many people would probably like to have this opportunity to contribute in constructing Buddha statues. Last year, when the Doma Monastery I wanted to build some Buddhist statues for Doma Monastery, but the Khenpos and Khenmos kept on asking for the opportunities to have that opportunity for themselves and didn't want me to contribute at all. So it is not that I lack the money to do that, rather it is because after we studied this text on the Avalokiteshvara, I think it's really important to contribute and to make connection to Avalokiteshvara. When it comes to the amount of the contribution, you can donate for 1 million or a dime. That is completely fine. I think the better way of doing it for those of you, for everyone, so that you don't have arrogance or feel quite ashamed for only contributing for $10 and someone feeling quite arrogant about donating 100,000. The best way would probably have the money concealed in an envelope, and then you can put it in the donation box. The requirement is that you have to voluntarily wish to do that. If you do not wish to contribute at all, then empty envelope is fine. If you can donate a dime or a dollar without any stinginess, then that would be quite virtuous. I had been contributing to the chiseling of money rock ever since 2008. Every year there would be a few million to contribute to that virtuous activity. So it is not that I lack money. It is not that I beg money from you. Rather, I think it is to make a connection to the body, speech, and mind of Avalokiteshvara, especially now that you had studied this sutra and according to the words of my perfect teacher, it says that whatever the masters and teachers would contribute their merit in, then you should also do that to contribute to the meritorious field. Because even by contributing a little bit, as long as the ocean does not dry out, the merit will not die off. So this is quite important. This is the activity just within the Chinese Sangha over here. And you don't have to open up the envelopes within each of the classes, and you don't need to write which class this is from. Otherwise, if one class has $200 and the other one has 3 million, then in that way you probably won't feel comfortable about that either. You probably feel competitive. So it might be better to just seal that and then put it all together. And then we will use that money to a portion of that money to practice to use as the Tok offering, and then the other part to build the Avalokiteshvara's statue. Again, I would request you not to spread the news. This is better to just be, this information is better to be contained just within here. As long as you can make that contribution without arrogance, without stinginess, if you can make that contribution with a pure mind, as I said, even if you have $5, then you make that connection is really important. That connection is the most important. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I think it's necessary for everyone to make that connection. That's why I'm making this announcement. Now, this is the second thing. The third thing is that recently I've been working on the editing of the chant book of Larungar. I also redid some of the translations because some of the early translations had some inaccuracies. And then it was supposed to be ready since by last year, but some of the Sangha members who were working with me got a bit lazy, so it hasn't really been ready yet until this year. A few of us kept on working on it and probably will be ready soon. I think it's necessary to have the Larungar's chant book to be re-proofread as well as re-edited, because all of the chants are mainly the chants from the Larungar's lineage. And I think it's important to have this particular book available. Otherwise, other different centers would make editorial changes on this text and make them their own, and which is fine. But last year, Khenpo Tsotrem Lodro told me a few times, and when I read into it, and I think it definitely needs some editorial work. So this time I included some of the Tok offering, practice sadhana, and the pre-class chants, as well as some other sadhanas, all according to the teachings and the lineage of Phuntsog Rinpoche. Day after tomorrow, when we practice the Tok offering, we can also have the new version of the chants ready to be on the PowerPoint, and then everyone can practice up on it all together. together. Some of the chants are some of the chants do have some changes, but mainly the changes are really not that big. They're just minor changes. And I think this time, by practicing the Tsok together, this can be considered as an auspicious tendril, though that the entire chant book has not been presented yet, but I think the part of the content can be used right now. When it comes to the chant book, initially I wanted to make 2 textbooks, one for the sadhana and the other one for daily practice and daily chants, and probably one just for the Dharma assemblies, such as the 4 Dharma assemblies. But I'm not sure if this can be completed this year. Maybe the chant book can be ready by the end of this year or beginning of next year. At the time that every one of you receives the book, you'll probably notice that there are some changes. For example, there are some phonetic changes, there are some translation changes. Though that many of you are already accustomed to the phonetic sounds, I didn't really require those sounds to be changed, but I think some of the sounds, if they were to be changed, that's probably more accurate. When it comes to chanting, at the beginning you probably feel a little bit uncomfortable, you're not accustomed to it, but after chanting it more and more, you'll be more accustomed to it. This is probably the last time that we finalize the chant book, and we tried to accommodate both of the previous habits in terms of the phonetic chanting. On the other, made it more accurate. Now, when it comes to the sadhanas, there's no big changes. Again, majority of the texts are the same, and the sadhana, such as the Tsok practice that we're going to practice, I believe many of you have already received the loan of the sadhana practices, such as the lamas received the four-armed manjushri Tsok offering, which they would practice on the 10th, and then the Yeshishogyo's Tsok offering on the 25th. These 2 sadhanas are quite long, and in the future, if it can be translated, that would be great. But for now, I think it would be the best that we just practice on the Tsok offering based on the 7-line prayer. This is easy to practice, and not only you can practice within Langar, you can practice everywhere else in different centers. That would be really wonderful. Whenever you see places that you don't quite understand, I think it's better for you to study. It is quite important. On one hand, I've translated lots of long sutras and shastras. On the other, when it comes to the chants and practices, I would spend a little bit time on it. For example, there is one translation I'm currently working on. It is Red Avalokiteshvara, that is the practice for the deceased. I would like to translate some of the sadhana and practices, after which then you can practice upon all of them and practice upon it. That would be easier. Now, there's another thing, that is, after this sutra, if I don't forget it by then, I think it would be better for me to remind you tomorrow or day after. However, since it would be good for you to make auspicious connections to Avalokiteshvara, it would be good for you to begin the chanting of the mantra of Avalokiteshvara before the Dharma assembly of the Vidyadharas. It would be the best for you to finish chanting 100,000 times. There are people who consider chanting 108 times of Avalokiteshvara's mantra would be the greatest accomplishment they had ever achieved, and they would want to write that into their memoir. However, I think 100,000 is quite practical. Within 3 times of time, if you can finish times, 100,000 times of the mantra chanting would be the best. That's my requirement. I understand that many of you are preparing for exams and you need to review the books and you need to study and you need to engage in your personal practices as well. But I'm sure 100,000 times is not that much. If you can discipline yourself, you would be able to finish it because it would be quite crucial for you to take out your good aspiration and inspiration into practice. Let us now continue with our class on the Sutra of the Baskets display, and I had just distributed the new translation I had just finished earlier. Everyone got it, right? The answer, past, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in billions of aeons. I now see it here to receive and uphold it, vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning, to liberate all beings. Let's generate the supreme bodhicitta. Let us now continue with our class on the Mahayana Sutra, the Sutra of the Baskets display. Now, this part that we're going to learn today is omitted in the Chinese translation, but existent in the Tibetan translation, as well as the English translation from the Tibetan, as well as the Sanskrit version. However, it is also omitted from the English version that's translated from the Chinese language. This time, I have already made a supplement translation for the omitted section. And the way I made this translation is not particularly in the same style as the translation by Devashantika, because Devashantika's translation is very difficult. Naturally, it is because his translation was made over 1,000 years ago. It's difficult to learn his style. Also, it is difficult to understand his translation. For that reason, I try to translate as best as I can. While I was translating, I thought to myself, for so many years, why didn't people place importance in this translation, and why didn't people cherish the hard work from the translator, and why didn't people find out about the omitted part from this translation? Especially considering at the time when Devashantika carried and took this sutra to China during the time of the invasion of the Muslim and the destruction of Buddhism at that time in India, while risking his life, and then carried this Sanskrit version to China and then translated it. How many people actually studied? And how many people actually read it? All of these great masters of the past went through such hardship and translated this. If people don't cherish it, if people don't understand it, if people don't read it, then though this sutra existed as a place that is worthy of offering, it is still not as important as people carrying it. Without the teachings on the Sutra of the Baskets display, I believe not many of you sitting in the audience would be able to study it, would have the opportunity to even see this particular teaching, this sutra. The teaching is so important and it has such great merit. So now I think it's quite important for us to give teachings, to turn the wheel of the Dharma, to continue the lifeline of the wisdom of the Buddhas, to actually give teachings of the Dharma, and do not just conceal the Dharma within your heart. It is important for you to spread the Dharma teachings. Otherwise, the Dharma would die while your physical body perishes. It shouldn't be like that. So we have to try our very best to spread the Dharma as much as possible and let others know the importance of this sutra. We need to know that if the great translators such as Devashantika do not make translation of it, and since this sutra had not been propagated in China, in mainland, in such a prosperous way, it is quite a pity. While I was translating it, I had to go through lots of hardship, also to look up lots of terminologies, and I had to go through lots of hardship during translation as well, and lots of time and so on and so forth. If you don't actually read it and don't actually practice it and don't actually spread the Dharma teachings, I'm not sure if it's meaningful. Now, let's look at the sutra. Previously, we had already talked about the various kinds of pores of Avalokiteshvara. There are different names to them, such as the golden pore and the black color pore. There are various kinds of pores. Within those pores lived various kinds of bodhisattvas, pratika Buddhas, asuras, kimnaras, and lots of sentient beings. Now, we're looking at the last of all. There is a pore named Vajraja pore. In the previous descriptions, we only talked about how the pore looked like, how there are different mountains and how there are the different storied palaces and so on. And then in the Chinese translation, it right away jumped into the conversation between the Buddha and Ananda. So when I cross-referenced with the other translations and copies, I noticed that there is a part omitted in the Chinese translation, but existent in the Tibetan. So I translated from the Tibetan language into the Chinese language to make a supplication translation. And then later, the translation can also include the English, Japanese, and Chinese version as well. We can make a supplementation translation so that this sutra will not have an omission anymore. We can make it more complete. Of course, we need to make some footnotes and side notes to mention about this omission as well, and our supplementation translation. Let's look at the description of this pore. Within this pore, there are many storied palaces, and there are golden stairs beautified by delightful jewels of various kinds. In those many storied palaces, there are seated Tathagatas who teach Dharma to the humans in the Jambudvipa. And then the teachings that he taught was the 6 perfections. According to Devashantika, his translation basically talks about only the 6 perfections, but not each of the description of the 6 perfections, such as the perfection of generosity, or perfection of conduct, perfection of patience, and so on. In the previous translations of Devashantika, he omitted all of the descriptions of the listings of the 6 perfections. However, my particular translation included the different paramitas, the teaching on the perfection of generosity, teaching on the perfection of conduct, the teaching on the perfection of patience, the teaching on the perfection of diligence, the teaching of perfection of meditation, and the teaching of perfection of wisdom. All of them are listed there. They teach various kinds of Dharma, continually teaching the humans who live in the Jambudvipa. There are all kinds of various types of dharmas being expounded over there. Maybe that's why this pore is called the various kinds of pore, Devajraja pore. The Tathagata over there teaches all kinds of dharma teachings, not only the Zen teaching or the Pure Land teaching. I think accordingly, we should also be the place where various kinds of dharma teachings are expounded. This year, we
I indeed also give different kinds of Dharma teachings. It is because considering the different capacities and different dispositions of the sentient beings, the various kinds of Dharma teachings would be better for them to gain benefit, because all kinds of beings would be able to gain different benefits from all kinds of Dharma teachings. All the various kinds of sentient beings with the opportunity to receive all kinds of Dharma teachings. If you do not gain all kinds of liberation based on your all kinds of capacities, then that is the all kinds of problems that you may have. Now let's look at the all kinds of Dharma teachings. The Buddha then told Bodhisattva Sarvanivarana Vishkambin, "Thus, noble son, they see the poor of Avalokiteshvara, Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. They also see deities such as Devas, Nagas, Yakshas, Asuras, Gandharvas, Kimnaras, Mahoragas, humans, non-humans, Mahashvaras, and Narayana assembled in Jetavana monastery, and many millions of trillions of bodhisattvas assembled over there. All the bodhisattvas, along with all kinds of sentient beings, gathered in the Jetavana monastery." According to Devashantika's translation, he translated it as the Jetavana grove, but in the Tibetan translation, it is specifically stated as a monastery. 金色的话呢，就是应该是当时佛在那个这个七元金色就是转法轮，就是所以当时最主要的这个当时佛陀就是转这部法轮，因为我们刚开始 Jetavana monastery is where the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma. And mainly, that is where the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma of this particular sutra. At the very beginning of this sutra, the Buddha was in Jetavana Grove, and over here, he is still in Jetavana Grove. This is the causes and conditions associated to Jetavana monastery. At that time, the Bodhisattva Sarvanivarana Vishkambin asked Bhagavat, saying that, "Bhagavat, are there no more other pores?" The Buddha then replied, saying that, "Noble son, beyond that pore, the Buddha did not directly address whether there are other pores or not. There must be more, but the Buddha not necessarily have to talk about all the pores." The Buddha continued to say that beyond that pore, there are 4 great oceans that come from the big toe of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, from his right foot, from the big toe of his right foot. Is the translation the same as the Tibetan translation? Are you looking at it just now? Why don't we continue with our class, because the old monk is currently looking for the translation right now. At that time, the 4 great oceans that come from the big toe of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara's right foot, their depth is immeasurable. When the water comes from his right big toe, it falls on the Vadavamukha, transforming it into a heap of ash. When we studied the wish-fulfilling treasury, there is also the description of Vadavamukha, but the teaching of the translation from Devashantika, he translated differently. He only said that it enters into ocean, but did not say the Vajramukha, did not translate it. He said that noble son, that is the kind of blessings that Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara has. Here refers to that the whole world is all of him, and he is reigning the whole world. The merits and blessings is inconceivable from Avalokiteshvara. And then again, Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin asked the Bhagavad, saying that Bhagavad, is there another poor? And then the Bhagavad answered, there are no more, noble son. It is not that there are no more pores in Avalokiteshvara. Rather, the most important, most well-known had already been expounded by the Bhagavad. And then the Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin continued to ask Bhagavad, saying that is Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara coming. In fact, not only Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin is wondering and is yearning to see Avalokiteshvara, we at Larongar also supplicate and yearning to see Avalokiteshvara as well. But if we were to supplicate and pray to Avalokiteshvara, he will definitely appear in front of us. I think faith is so crucial, not only to a Buddha, but to a deity, to the teacher. Faith is the most important. For example, if a disciple were to have great faith to a teacher, at the time of listening to the Dharma teaching of that teacher, one would necessarily think of all the kindness that a teacher would had exhibited to the disciple, and then thinks of contemplating in such a way. Naturally, the blessings would enter into the disciple's mind and heart, and this is just a natural law. In our world, to give you an example, if a doctor were to be very respectful to his teacher, then people around that doctor would think that this doctor is very trustworthy, because he would be so respectful to the teacher, then he could be very good at his skills of practicing medicine, because his teacher had passed down the lineage. If we were to say that I'm simply studying for myself, I don't need this and that, then people naturally would generate some doubt. The Dharma teaching is exactly the same. If we were to brush off the teachings given by the Tathagata, by the Bodhisattvas, by the teachers, but to claim that we ourselves have already developed the teaching of non-duality of appearance and emptiness, then others would just naturally think that it is something that is not to care for, because there is nothing to seek from you. But if you were to say that I have received it from my teacher, and my teacher had taught in such a way, my teacher is such a wonderful, extraordinary teacher, then the blessings that this person had received would definitely be able to benefit the others as well. So let it be Avalokiteshvara or the other deities, we ourselves need to develop great faith. Then you would be able to gain great merit. According to the words of my perfect teacher, it says that respect and faith, if one were to have great respect and faith, then the blessings and the cities would be great as well. The blessings and cities would be in accordance with the amount of faith and respect one has to the teacher as well as the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In the Wish-fulfilling treasury, there is a teaching on faith as well. If you genuinely feel that by relying on a very small Avalokiteshvara's statue or picture, you would be able to receive the blessings from that, then you would definitely be able to receive blessings. But if you were to think all of those blessed objects are simply a gadget and it takes so much effort, then you would not be able to receive any blessings. The other day I said that whatever kinds of blessed objects that we will make later would be better to be smaller and more exquisite. Otherwise, sometimes we have all of the large tankas and the large prayer wheels and so on and so forth. It could create a burden to those of you who have only smaller residence or smaller places. Also, I think larger products would create larger burden to the earth as well, since we only have very limited resources. Anyhow, in the future, it would be the best to make more exquisite, blessed objects. In such a way, we would be able to generate faith to the kinds of objects that's rather very so-so in its craftsmanship and in its quality. Then it's difficult to generate faith and could bring lots of trouble in dealing with them as well. As a group, without some very special conditions, it would be the best not to accept those large and bulk productions of blessed objects from others, because it would be difficult to deal with it afterwards. We do need to encourage others to practice virtue, but not necessarily to make everything so big. That is so big that it could cover the whole mandala that we have over here, because we have very limited space over here as well. Later, maybe we can make a very small, really exquisite pendant of Avalokiteshvara. Then it would be easier for people to see the object as the true Avalokiteshvara. On the other hand, I have to address that nowadays the craftsmanship are much better than how it used to be in the past. The Longchenpa's statue that I got in Nepal years ago, the original quality and the form is not as beautiful and exquisite as it is now. Now the old monk had already confirmed that the two are the same. This old phone of yours. Now let's look at the next part. The noble Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. Is he coming or not? The Bhagavad said the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara will come to this great monastery of Jetavana in order to see me, to bow down to me, to honor me, and to give a prophecy concerning the deity Maheshvara in a realm within this universe. He will come to the great monastery of Jetavana. Earlier, the Bodhisattva Sarvanivarana Vishkampan asked whether Avalokiteshvara is coming over here or not, and the Bhagavad answered that he will. And then he said that at the time of coming here, Avalokiteshvara will radiate a blue, yellow, red, white crystal and the silver light rays, and those light rays will go to the Jetavana first. So before the arrival of Avalokiteshvara, the various colored lights would shine forth and would reach to Jetavana first. When they came here, they circled the Bhagavad 3 times. Then they left Jetavana monastery and went to the great Avicii hell. When the light reached the Avicii hell, they cooled the great Avicii hell. Also, when the light radiated to Jetavana monastery, they circled the Bhagavad 3 times, and then at that time all kinds of auspicious signs started to manifest in Jetavana Monastery. The divine magnolia trees appeared as divine lotus pools appeared, and then all kinds of auspicious signs as well as all kinds of lights shine forth, and then Jetavana Monastery appeared in shine like divine gold. That is what the Jetavana Monastery looked like. That's similar to the description of the beginning part of the sutra as well. And then Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara then left the realm of Sukhavati and then went to Jetavana Monastery and eventually arrived there. He first probably went to the monastery from Sukhavati. He went to the grove first, and then he came from Sukhavati and then went to the grove first, and then went to Jetavana Monastery. When he came from Sukhavati, not so sure how he went to Sukhavati. If you remember, at the very beginning of this story, Sarvanivarana Vishkampan asked for Avalokiteshvara, and then the Buddha said that the light comes from hell realm because Avalokiteshvara radiated that light to liberate sentient beings. And then Sarvanivarana Vishkampan asked when would he be able to see Avalokiteshvara, and then the Buddha said that maybe not now because Avalokiteshvara needs to travel to various kinds of places such as the Preta city and so on and so forth, including Rakshas and Yakshasas world and so on. And then he probably went to Sukhavati before he came back to see Shakyamuni Buddha. How did he travel to Sukhavati? It didn't really specify over here, but Avalokiteshvara now travels from Sukhavati to Jetavana Grove. Shakyamuni Buddha, the Bhagavat, with the voice of the cuckoo bird, with the Kalapinka voice, asked, "Noble son, are you tired? Are you weary?" I think the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas would also inquire the other's wellness and to greet each other with those kinds of questions. I think we need to greet each other as well, between the teacher and the disciple, among the disciples and among the teachers. We need to learn how to greet each other nicely instead of being very distant and even have a sense of aggression. Look at the examples presented by Shakyamuni Buddha and Avalokiteshvara. At first, Shakyamuni Buddha asked, "Are you tired? Are you weary? Have you completely ripened beans?" And then Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara said to the Bhagavat, "I have done as the Bhagavat instructed. I have accomplished the task." Well, Avalokiteshvara did not reply the Bhagavat's question about whether he's tired or not. He simply just said that I have already accomplished the task as you instructed, because maybe Avalokiteshvara knows that his weariness or tiredness is not the most important. It is not something that Shakyamuni Buddha places the greatest importance. And then the Bhagavat give his approval, saying that, "Noble son, it is excellent that you have accomplished the task. Excellent, excellent." Sometimes the Phuntsog Rinpoche would ask certain Khenpos to go to different places to give Dharma teachings, to engage in retreats, or to release life. And then after those Khenpos would return to Larangar, Phuntsog Rinpoche would praise them by saying that, "Oh, we had so-and-so Khenpo. He went to so-and-so place to give Dharma teachings, to release lives." And Phuntsog Rinpoche would normally praise them most of the times, especially if the Khenpos, those Khenpos that did a good job. So he would usually praise those Khenpos. Similarly, over here, Shakyamuni Buddha praised Avalokiteshvara, saying that he went to different realms and benefited sentient beings and spread the Dharma teachings. That's really excellent. Then the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara offered a lotus flower to the Bhagavad and said, Bhagavad, the Tathagata Amitabha, presents you with these lotus flowers and hopes that you're not unwell, not fatigued, and you're in good health, and that life is pleasant. Look at Amitabha at the time of greeting, sending his greeting to the Bhagavad Shakyamuni Buddha. He also asked how he is and how his health is. After the greetings, Amitabha also sent a gift, that is the lotus flower, thinking that Amitabha lives in the Pure Land where everything is filled with gold and silver and all the jewels and so on. But Shakyamuni Buddha's land is filled with 5 degenerations. Amitabha only sent one lotus flower, and Shakyamuni Buddha accepted it and placed it to the left. Not so sure why left. The Buddha did not think that why Amitabha did not bring me some gold, rather only gifted me a lotus flower. He did not think in that way. Avalokiteshvara was the messenger between Shakyamuni Buddha and Amitabha. He sent the greetings as well as a little token of gift to Shakyamuni Buddha. In the future, I hope the Vajrasangha, our fellow Sangha members, wherever you are, maybe some of you would live in the Northeast and some in some other areas, whenever you are about to visit each other or whenever you have people to visit around that area, you can ask your disciple or you can bring a little gift to your Sangha member, to your fellow Dharma friend. Sometimes it could be very simple gift like a katak or like a lotus flower. But I'm sure as a Dharma teacher, they would not only value your gift based on the monetary value. A little while ago, I encountered someone who traveled from a place where I know a Khenpo was residing, so I asked that person to take back a book as a gift to that Khenpo. Sometimes even a simple gift can be a representation of friendship. But I'm sure between the two Buddhas, they definitely have a different layer of a hidden meaning, of a secret meaning that only they would understand. From the worldly point of view, I think it is also necessary for us to show our appreciation or our friendship with some tokens of appreciation from a little gift or some greetings. Of course, unless you are the kind of practitioner who engages in solitary retreat most of your life like Milarepa, then you're not subject to that. But as long as you're still subject to the worldly affairs, then it is the best for you to comply with the others as well. This is quite important. And then the Deva Mahashvara came to the Bhagavad, bowed his head to the Bhagavad's feet, and then said, Bhagavad, I pray that you give me a prophecy. At this point, Avalokiteshvara had not expounded anything further, had not explained why he came from the Sukhavati, or if there is a message from Amitabha for him to give to Shakyamuni Buddha or anything else. Rather, at that time, he carried the lotus flower to the human world, and then Shakyamuni Buddha, at that time, was about to see the Deva Mahashvara. The Mahashvara was asking for a prophecy. If he doesn't have any, if Mahashvara does not have any confidence in attained realization, then the teacher, of course, would not give him any prophecy, would rather probably scold him, saying that while you do not even study or practice, then what kind of prophecy are you asking for? But at that time, Shakyamuni Buddha said that you should go to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, you should ask a prophecy from him. Usually, the Buddhas would give prophecy to the disciples on their future enlightenment. But Avalokiteshvara also has such capacity to give prophecies. And then the Deva Maheshvara went and bowed down to the feet of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara and said, I pay homage to Avalokiteshvara, great Lord who holds a lotus, who has a lotus face, who loves a lotus, who has a beautiful lotus in his hand, and who has a splendor of lotuses, who travels around. Not so sure what travels around is. Maybe around in the Tibetan language could refer to that if you were to circumambulate around Avalokiteshvara, then he will bring relief to your suffering. It could mean that. So who brings relief to beings, who completely illuminates the world, and who brings comfort. The Deva Maheshvara went to Avalokiteshvara to ask for the prophecy. And then after Deva Maheshvara praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara in that way, and then they said silently, Avalokiteshvara did not give any prophecy yet. Then Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara asked the Deva Maheshvara, Noble son, why are you silent? The Deva Maheshvara answered, I request the prophecy of my unsurpassable true enlightenment. Avalokiteshvara said, Noble son, in the world named Vivrata, you will be Tathagata, the Arhat, the Samyaksambuddha, perfect in wisdom and conduct, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the unsurpassed guide who tames beings, and the teacher of gods and humans, the Buddha and Bhagavad. This is the prophecy he received from the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. Then the Uma Devi, that is the consort of Deva Maheshvara. Then the Uma Devi also came and bowed her head to Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara's feet after seeing the Deva Maheshvara received his prophecy. So Uma Devi also came forth and praised Avalokiteshvara, saying that I pay homage to Avalokiteshvara, great Lord who gives life, who completely illuminates the world, who has a beautiful lotus in his hand, who has the splendor of beautiful lotuses, who travels around, who brings beings to nirvana, who creates excellent minds, and who holds the Dharma. This is the praises given by Uma Devi. She praised, I think her praises are a little bit different than Maheshvara. She praised Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara in that way and then said, I pray that you free me from this inferior female body of a woman. I pray that you free me from the suffering of the dark impurities in the womb and free from being owned. The last one, free from always being owned, in the Tibetan translation means being liberated from or freed from having the grasping towards permanence. And then Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara said to her sister, "Your realm will be on the southern slope of Himavat, the king of mountains. You will be the Tathagata, the Arhat, the Samyak Sambuddha, perfect in wisdom and conduct, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the unsurpassable guide, who tames beings, the teacher of gods and humans, the Buddha, the Bhagavat, Umeshvara." The Bodhisattva Saranivarana Vishkambin kept quiet till now. At the very beginning, if you remember, he was so eager to meet Avalokiteshvara, but when Avalokiteshvara arrived there, he's rather quite calm. He did not run to Avalokiteshvara and want to take a photo with him. The Bhagavad at that point said, "Look, Saranivarana Vishkambin, Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara has given them prophecies of the highest complete enlightenment. This, noble son, is entitled the Mahashvara episode. The Mahashvara episode could be a separate sutra, but I'm not so sure about that. Maybe this particular part, the part where Avalokiteshvara gives prophecy to Mahashvara and Umeshvara, is the Mahashvara episode. It's a short sutra. Nowadays, we also have some very short sutras. So at that point, the Bhagavad reminded Saranivarana Vishkambin, saying that this is the sutra that's titled the Mahashvara episode. Saranivarana Vishkambin then said to the Bhagavad, Saranivarana Vishkambin at that point felt that he had already gained a great benefit by seeing Avalokiteshvara. He said that Bhagavad Avalokiteshvara has come. I, who was blind, can now see. Today my life has borne fruit. Today my wishes have come true. Today my wishes have been fulfilled. Today my path to enlightenment has been cleansed. I have been taught correct thought, the Dharmakaya and Nirvana. Whenever we encounter those noble ones, it is not necessary that the noble ones would touch your head and give you blessings in such a way, or to sit very close to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but the kind of atmosphere, the kinds of presence of the noble one at certain situations can be a great blessing. Look at Avalokiteshvara at the time of giving other people blessings and giving Dharma teachings to the others. The Bodhisattva Saranivarana Vishkambin also gained his sight from blindness and gained great meaning to his life, and he was already content. So we can see that the Bodhisattvas are indeed very different than the mundane beings like us. Sometimes we, as mundane beings, would feel that I've been waiting for this teacher for so and so long period of time, and why don't you give me an opportunity to have a private audience? Well, I really want to see you in person, and so on and so forth. But the Bodhisattva do not think in such a way. He did not get unhappy from not having a personal encounter. Maybe that's the difference between us, the mundane beings, to the bodhisattvas. The mundane beings like us would have lots of the emotional reaction, but for the noble ones, such as the bodhisattva, Saranivarana Vishkambin, he really wanted to receive the teachings and he had already listened to the merits of Avalokiteshvara, also the merits of the six-syllable mantra, and he needs these causes and conditions to receive those Dharma teachings, not necessarily of seeing the form of Avalokiteshvara or to receive the blessings from Avalokiteshvara. Rather, he was sitting there quietly. He didn't really approach Avalokiteshvara. So we can see those major differences between us, the mundane beings, to the noble ones. And then Saranivarana Vishkambin said to Bhagavad, saying that, Bhagavad, I pray that you teach today the special qualities of Avalokiteshvara. The next part, the Bhagavad then expounded the different qualities of Avalokiteshvara, firstly from the examples, and then the samadhi. And then the qualities between Avalokiteshvara to Samadhabhadra. Those are the three aspects. If we can finish all of these, then I think our class can be completed today, and then the rest we can study it in the next class. The Bhagavad then said, Savanivarana Vishkambin, it is like this. There are the kings of mountains, Mount Chakravala and the Mount Mahachakravala, the king of mountain, Mount Muchilinda, and the Mount Mahamuchilinda, the kings of mountains, Mount Kala, Mount Mahakala, the king of mountain, Mount Samstrasra, the Mount Mahasamstrasra. The names could be very similar. Especially when chanting in Tibetan. Usually in the Tibetan they would say Ri something something, that's meaning the mountain of something something. In Tibet, we usually would ask to request the monks to chant the 8,000 verses of Prajna Paramita, and then the monk would chant all the way from morning to dawn. And they would chant very quickly like this. Sometimes they would chant the 8,000 verses of Prajna Paramita, sometimes the Golden Light Sutra, sometimes the Sutra of Great Liberation. So they would chant it really, really quickly by saying the Mount Mahasamstrasra, the king of mountain, Mount Pralambodhara, the king of mountain, Mount Anadarasaka, and then so on and so forth. The Tathagata then said that I can calculate, Nobu-san, the number, parts, and group of how many palas are there in these mountains. How many hundreds of palas, or thousands of palas, or millions or trillions of palas, but Nobu-san, I cannot calculate Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara's accumulation of merit. The merit of Avalokiteshvara cannot be calculated. I cannot calculate it. This particular example is not too clear. In fact, it indirectly says that if one were to weigh the weight of all the mountains together, the Bhagavad said that he knows all the weight of such weight of the mountains, but the weight of the accumulation of merits of Avalokiteshvara cannot be weighed. And there is no way for the Bhagavad to calculate even the accumulation of merit to Avalokiteshvara. And then he continued to say that, Nobu-san, it is like this. I can count each drop in the vast ocean, but Nobu-san, I cannot calculate Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara's accumulation of merit. Nobu-san, it is like this. I can count each leaf in the forest of Arga wood trees, but Nobu-san, I cannot calculate Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara's accumulation of merit. This is the third example. And then, Savanivarana Vishkambin, it is like this. If the king of mountains, Sumeru, were to become birch barks, and if the vast ocean were to become an inkwell, and if all the men, women, and boys and girls who live in the four continents were to become scribes, and if they were to write on the limitless, endless extent of the Mount Sumeru as birch bark, I would be able to count even every letter, but Nobu-san, I cannot calculate the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara's accumulation of merit. And then, Nobu-san, it is like this. If someone were to provide Tathagata Arhat, the Samyak Sambuddhas, as numerous as the grains of sand in the 12 Ganges rivers, with robes, food, bowls, beddings, seats, necessary medicines, and utensils for an aeon, The accumulation of merit must be really grand. When we hear such kinds of expression, we understand that there is such grand accumulation of merit. Since you would make offerings to such a grand numbers of Buddhas with such grand numbers of offerings, that accumulation of merit would come from serving those Tathagatas would only equal to the merit of the tip of one hair on the body of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. Now this is the fifth example that the Bhagavat presented to Savanivara Vishkambin to demonstrate the qualities of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. The next part is the Samadhi. There are about 30 or so Samadhis. Savanivara Vishkambin, it is like this. Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara has many hundreds of thousands of samadhis. The samadhi named complete defeating, named adorning, named unadoring, named lightning illumination, named being patient, the samadhi named great brilliance, the samadhi named manifesting, the samadhi named Vajra garland, the samadhi named sublime gift, the samadhi named 100 strength, the samadhi named endless array, the samadhi named summit of mental brilliance, the samadhi named king's powers, the samadhi named Vajra wall, the samadhi named Vajra doorway, the samadhi named continuous sublime gift, the samadhi named liberation from senses, samadhi named liberation from anger, the samadhi named senses sublime illumination, samadhi named daymaker sublime illumination, the samadhi named facing the dharma, the samadhi named Vajra womb, the samadhi named well taught, the samadhi named creating nirvana, the samadhi named creating infinite light rays, the samadhi named creating yoga, the samadhi named scattering, the samadhi named complete illumination of the world, the samadhi named illumination of the Buddha realm, the samadhi named facing love, the samadhi named well tamed, and named wisdom's light, the samadhi named abode of being, the samadhi named creating exhaustibility, the samadhi named extinguishing avicii, the samadhi named ocean deep, the samadhi named 100 retinues, and the samadhi named teaching the path, noble son. The Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara has those samadhis. Just like how the poor people in the world barely has any wealth, but rich people has a great amount of wealth. Noble Bodhisattva Mahasattva has such a great numbers of samadhis, but as the poor beings in this world, we have none. And then the Bhagavad continued to say that Savanivara Vishkambin, it is like this. When the Tathagata, the Arhat, the Samyak Sambuddha, perfect in wisdom and conduct, the Srigata, the knower of the world, the unsurpassable guide who tames beings, the teacher of gods and humans, the Buddha, the Bhagavat Krakuchanda appeared in this world. At that time, when the Bhagavat Krakuchanda appeared in this world, at that time, I was a bodhisattva named Dhanasura. The Bhagavad Shakyamuni Buddha said that I was a bodhisattva named Dhanasura, and listening from the Buddha, whose name was Krakuchanda, he also listened to the teachings on the merits of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara from the Bhagavad Krakuchanda. Whenever we receive teachings from teachers and receive any of those teachings on the merits and qualities of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we should also pass it down to the others. To people with good retention of memory, whatever they had heard before, they would be able to recite it to the others by telling, oh, that's what I heard. But if you don't have a good retention of memory, then it would be the best for you to write it down. We would say that even the faintest ink is better than good memory. So it would be the best for you to write it down so that after years and years, you would be able to still remember what is the most important to you. Shakyamuni Buddha said that those are the qualities I've heard. When I was in the presence of that Tathagata, I heard that description of the qualities of Avalokiteshvara, and I saw these different samadhis of Bodhisattva Samadabhadra and others. It is similar to a contest. Avalokiteshvara and Samadabhadra were in a contest of entering into samadhis. He had witnessed both of the bodhisattvas entering into samadhis. The Bhagavata Shakyamuni Buddha continued to say that when the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Samadabhadra was in the samadhi named Ascending Vajra, Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara was in the samadhi named Scattering. When I was young, when I was very little, we would pick different kinds of flowers, the red, blue, and yellow, and as kids, we would compare to each other. We would compete with each other. We would say that I have a color, I have this flower that is yellow, and you don't have any yellow flower. And then the other kids would say that they don't have the yellow flower, so they would chant Om Mani Padme Hum as a way to repay or to make up his lack of a golden flower. So we would play that game by making competition. At the time, Shakyamuni Buddha, witnessing the entering of samadhi of both Avalokiteshvara and Samadabhadra, he saw that when one bodhisattva, Samadabhadra, enters into the ascending Vajra samadhi, then Avalokiteshvara then was in the samadhi named Scattering. And then when Bodhisattva Mahasattva Samadabhadra was in the samadhi named Moon's Sublime Illumination, and then Avalokiteshvara was in the samadhi named Sun's Sublime Illumination, it is not that they are competing to see who's better, rather they are just in this contest of practicing, of entering and coming out of samadhi. It is like a practice or contest. And then the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Samadabhadra was in the samadhi named Sprinkling, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara was in the samadhi named Treasury of Space. When Samadabhadra was in the samadhi named Plentitude, and then the Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva was in the samadhi named Indra's Intelligence. When Samadabhadra was in the samadhi named Creating Indra, and then Avalokiteshvara was in the samadhi named Indra's Intelligence. When Samadabhadra was in the samadhi named Indra's Way, Avalokiteshvara was in the samadhi named Ocean Deep. When Samadabhadra was in the samadhi named Intimidating Lion, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was in the samadhi named Play of the Lion. And then when Samadabhadra was in the samadhi named Sublime Gift, Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was in the samadhi named Drying Up Avicii. This must be a really wonderful samadhi. That must be a very powerful samadhi. When Samadabhadra opened up his pore, Avalokiteshvara opened all his pores. And Samadabhadra said to Avalokiteshvara, saying that Avalokiteshvara, after their contesting, Samadabhadra said to Avalokiteshvara, saying that it is excellent that you have this capacity. Excellent, excellent. Samadabhadra is quite a powerful bodhisattva. You need to know that he is considered as the father of all the Buddhas. And he praised Avalokiteshvara by saying that it's excellent that you have this capacity. And then the Tathagata Krakuchanda said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Samadabhadra, "Noble son, you have only seen a little of Avalokiteshvara's prowess, when the Tathagata do not have Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara's prowess." It is such a very little bit of the merit of Avalokiteshvara. Even the Tathagatas do not have the prowess of the Avalokiteshvara. And then Shakyamuni Buddha said that that is what I heard Krakuchanda say. We heard so many of the great qualities of Avalokiteshvara today.